After a 2-week hiatus, we're finally back. He's back. Boy Wonder's back from the States. I was surprised they let him in, and I'm surprised Laura let him back. But Jay Motty is back in the building. That means I'm Scotty, that's Motty. Obviously, it's talk all things United, but it's nice to be reunited.
Yes, Jay. It is. I've missed you, man.
Don't lie.
I have. You know
2 WhatsApps.
Listen, that's 2 more than most people got. Trust me.
Strangers.
It was great being out there and all that. I had a great time, and you saw some of the videos, all the stuff on socials. But next time it would be better if you were out there with us. Do you know what I mean? We could take this show on the road as well, because there was people who were chatting to me. I was chatting to loads of United fans out there, fans of Stretford Paddock, and fans of this podcast as well. People asking about Scotty and Motty. So yeah, it was good to see the love all the way over in the United States of America.
Yeah, no, it was good. I was very proud of you to see you over there in the States.
Well, you held the fort here, brother. I'm proud of you. You was here at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, it was
doing God's work.
6 a.m. was the latest I think I left. But yeah, it's very valiant effort by me and the team at Stretford Paddock. But if everyone's watching now, whether you're watching live or catching up later on, can you please subscribe? I think we're like 90 off 8,000. I did try and set a challenge that Jay would come back with a New York Knicks top for me if we reached 8,000. Thankfully, we didn't, and there was no way he was coming back with a New York Knicks top for me if we had, was there?
I went looking for it, right?
Did you really? Where did you go? Los Angeles?
I couldn't find a cricket ground.
Oh, right.
Like, so when I just looked at me like I was daft, so sorry about that. I'll give it a go next time.
There won't be a next time. But yeah, please make sure you subscribe.
Like my missus. Yeah. Last time you're going there.
Me and Laura being in cahoots.
I know, I hope you enjoyed it.
He's not going again.
It won't be happening again. Fair enough.
Yeah, please make sure you're subscribing. First up, we're going to talk about Greenwood, because it's been dragging on far too long. The Glazers need to make a decision one way or another. Now, I don't understand why they're allowing it to get so close to the opening day of the season is he going to come back or is he not?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right, there's lots of different facets and arguments to talk about with this one. Obviously, it's a very emotive subject. We know what's gone on, but I'll give a little recap of where we're up to. We heard the audio that came out in a social media post from the young girl. Then there was the club suspended him. I think then he was arrested, then he was charged. Then about a year later, recently, or well, not that recently, but a few months ago, whatever it was, the charges were dropped. The clubs announced they were doing their own internal investigation, because obviously there's difference between breaking the law and maybe breaking your contracts. There can be differences there, or they might look at it and go, okay, the charges have been dropped, but we've got this audio, there's other things we want to examine and look at, or whatever, however they want to get into it. That investigation now is still ongoing, I presume, because there's not been any resolution here. They've not said what that investigation has found. But we are at a point now where that's been going on for some months. The season is about to start. A lot of journalists have said that the announcement would be made, or a decision would be made before the season starts. Manchester United's first game is this time next week, or in an hour or whatever it is next week. So either way, they're going to have to announce something if they are going to meet that deadline. I think it was Simon Stone on the BBC said it last week. He said before the game against Wolves, United make a decision. I think Dave McDonnell a couple of weeks ago said that, or a week ago, he said that a decision would be made. Now, no one's saying, well, I'm not seeing anyone saying it's definitely going to be one or the other. The three obvious options here are sell him, loan him, or he plays for Manchester United. Now, whatever those three options the club choose, you're going to have a large section of both, Manchester United fans and non-Manchester United fans who will either disagree with it or agree with it. I've spoke to many fans about this topic since it reared its ugly head. A lot of fans were like, don't want to see him play for Manchester United again. We've heard the audio, don't care about the charges being dropped, just not for me. I'd rather he just moved on. Some fans look at the fact the charges were dropped and say, okay, in the eyes of the law, I'm talking about the law here, innocent till proven guilty, deserves a second chance. We think he's getting married, he's having a baby and all this.
She's pregnant.
He's settling down with someone. So people looking at that. Others saying, well, if you loan him, that is a solution where he can go and be someone else's problem for a bit, get back to playing football, and then maybe you bring him back to Manchester United, or you sell him because he's proven that he's still got it. I don't think there's obvious happy ending here. I think you can argue the case for all three, and I think people have been doing that, regardless of whether you believe from a moral point of view he should play for Manchester United again or not. The club have to make some sort of decision, whether that's get rid of him, whether that's loan him, or whether that's keep him, because the season kicks off next week. And I get investigations can take a long time, but he's had a year long or whatever it's been, police investigation, then the club investigation. We spoke to Chris Wheeler, I think, recently, who came in from Daily Mail, who was talking about this on Stretford Paddock, and he was sort of saying, the club have their own investigation, but there's only so much they can do. They're not the police. They can't subpoena witnesses and things like that. They can speak to certain,
what are they draw? What evidence they actually drawing on?
They can only speak to certain individuals. I think they can only speak to him by their own rights. I don't think they can compel anyone else to speak to them. Certainly not the girl who's involved, unless she's willing to. So it's a bit vague as to what exactly is going on. Now, I'm fully on board with the fact that there's got to be the club ought to do an investigation. I understand that. I'm not saying they shouldn't. It's just now, from everything we gather, all the news reports coming out there are that this decision is imminent. So you've got to make that decision one way or the other. And I think that the longer it drags on, the less helpful that is to anyone. I don't think it proves anything. I don't think it gets to...
It's not beneficial for all.
Not beneficial to anyone, is it? And I think there's been some pushback there's been reports that perhaps the United women's team aren't going to be happy with returns. There's other reports that I read that some of the United players are actually okay with him coming back. They feel that he's in the eyes of the law, is innocent until proven guilty. Again, though, varying reports. I don't know. I'm just what you read in different papers, and some of them are conflicting as well. So it's like, do you believe this report? Do you believe the other report? Either way, you would expect a decision to be made within the next 7 days. Otherwise, the season's going to kick off, and Mason Greenwood, Manchester United, and Erik ten Hag aren't going to know what the future lies. And Erik ten Hag, in a press conference, and I'll let you come in there because I know I've been speaking for quite some time, said that it was a club decision. He said it wasn't. I think he said it wasn't his decision. It's a club decision what happens with Mason Greenwood. So he sort of pushed it upstairs, or said it's upstairs.
That's the right thing to do from his point of view, though, wasn't it?
I'd like to think that he's got some input into that decision. It might.
But I imagine he said that he's give his thoughts to the board above them. But when you're looking at the legal aspect of contracts and stuff, and I imagine this is the reason why it's taken so long. It isn't like they're still waiting to decide whether they want to keep him or not. It's whether he's actually broke any contractual laws, or brought the club into dispute, regarding what's actually happened. I can't believe that it's taken this long to actually... Why are you not conducting the investigation parallel to the police?
I don't get that. I don't know if the hands were tied legally, whether they weren't allowed to. I don't know if that's a thing. I'm not exactly au fait with the machinations of employment law or employment investigations versus police investigations. I do feel that it has dragged on a bit. And I'm all about due diligence, and I'm all about, you've got to sort of make sure that you make it ironclad, whatever your decision is. But it has dragged on. And we feel like with everything that goes on with these owners, it's all last minute, it all drags on, we don't know what we're doing. And I feel like now we're in a position where it's going to almost feel a bit rushed, because if you make an announcement 3 days before the season kicks off or whatever, people are going to go, we've just sort of rushed that through. When that might not necessarily be the case, but it's how it looks. And that's the last thing you want to... You don't want it to look like you've made a rush decision, where if you announce it a couple of days before the season starts, it looks like you have. And I'm going to get into some of the comments as well. A lot of people point out there's other considerations here. Like, if let's say, for example, you want to sell him, is he match fit? Is he a player that clubs can go, okay, you get a player that can come in and do a job for us? If he stays, is he match fit? Is he fit enough to play for Manchester United Football Club? Regardless of the moral issue, which is obviously the big one, I'm not saying ignore that. I'm just saying on this particular point, in terms of football, is he ready to play football? Is he physically fit enough to play football at highest level? I don't know. We've seen pictures of him training, I think, but
he's not been training when he was in the first team.
No, I don't know what that means. So
then there's the commodification of him. If he's a player, then what are the Glazers going to be able to get the money that they see fit for his ability to sort of sell him on? And then you've got to think that other clubs that may be willing to take Mason Greenwood on and buy him from Manchester United, all things considered, they wouldn't be wanting to, that they'd be trying to cut rate, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a commodity issue. I mean, I always feel with Manchester United as well, with the Mason Greenwood situation, and it's not a nice thing to think about, but I do feel that there might be a part of the club that thinks if we let him go, and let's say, for example, you sell him to Besiktas or Roma or anywhere, I'm just pulling clubs out of the air. I've not heard any links with those particular clubs. I think there was a brief link with Roma, it was nonsense. let's say you sell him to one of those clubs. He goes there, does a year, gets back to fitness. Someone in the Premier League takes a punt on him, comes back to the Premier League, bangs in goals. And Manchester United, the board or the club, the owner's going to be upset about that and go, we shouldn't have done that, we should have kept him. Or are they going to go, no, we did the right thing morally and we're happy with that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that is, I'm not saying I agree with it, I'm just saying that might be a consideration the club have. Because let's be honest here, regardless of what your feelings about Mason Greenwood as a person, that is a different debate. As a footballer, he's a generational talent. He is. I've said that before this.
A lot of the majority of Man United fans were like putting him up as being the future
potential,
the goal to take United back to where we were.
Future potential all-time top scorer.
Yeah.
He's a very, very gifted footballer, regardless of what you think of him as a person. So you're looking at someone who's 21 years old, I think, potentially could bang in goals. And if you're a goal scorer, that's probably the most, it's the most sought after commodity.
Yeah.
So I just wonder whether that is a massive consideration for them, the fact that you've got this player who potentially could, for the next 10, 12 years, whatever, bang in 30 goals a season, and whether that is a real issue for them. It's like, can we afford, from a football and business point of view, to let him go? Or are they going to say, look, we've done our investigation, the audio and other stuff is out there,
yeah.
we've looked into it, we're not happy that you've conducted yourself in a manner that's becoming for a Manchester United player, we're going to move you on. Don't forget as well, Manchester United can sell any player they want. They've sold players in the past. Who, I'm not saying that they've sold players because of this, but if you're a footballer at a club and you're under contract, you can be sold.
Yeah,
that's not your decision. That the club can go, we're getting rid of you. That has happened
countless
times, and so there's lots of different sort of sides to this to look at, and it'll be interesting to see which side the club look at it from.
Does the Glazers, presumably, I mean, you talk about dragging things on, we're like 8 months after them making that announcement that they were selling Manchester United.
Strategic alternatives.
So if we're on the understanding that they are going, how much does this sort of moral over money sort of matter with the Glazers as a board? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would they care if their end game is to try and be out by the time in this theoretical situation where Greenwood, comes back to haunt them and scores goals for another club? There's that situation there, isn't there? And I know we're going to get to the comments. How much, all things considered, is Mason Greenwood worth? So if they did sell him, and we're a club that would like to have more money in due to FFP to bring players in, I'm thinking about the here and now. Let's just say, for example, today the Harry Kane news came out that Spurs have rejected Bayern Munich's final bid for Harry Kane. If we're trying to move money around, would that not be make business sense? I'm not saying we get what we'd have to pay for Harry Kane, but
yeah, maybe. There's so many different. It's the great unknown, isn't it? Like, you make the sale. What's going on there? Are they looking at the Glazers and going, we're not going to sell, or we are going to sell? We could sell him before we go and get someone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that might be considered. I have no idea, but you've got that added side to it. The fact that there's this ownership saga going on at the same time. Plus, you've got the fact that United need an attacker. So if it's not going to be Mason Greenwood, if we are going to move him on, like you say, is that going to fund something towards Harry Kane? Also, you've got the fact that you're probably not going to get as much for him now as you would if you loaned him and he smashed it for a year. But then you might loan him and he might do what Anthony Martial did at Sevilla and do nothing. It might be a shadow of his former self. Plus, you've got all that baggage of everything that's gone on as well. So it might not be worth as much as you hoped. There's so many ifs and buts and maybes around all this.
Is this an unknown quantity in terms of what's happened? I can't remember anything in my lifetime for Manchester United player to have this hanging around on them. But there's been the experience of players coming to the Premier League before that have done certain things in the past and maybe resurrected their career.
We've seen players that have had very serious charges levelled against
them. There was like people. There was someone who went to Arsenal years ago who didn't he kill someone in a car crash?
Well, Marco Alonso killed someone in a car crash, didn't he? He went to Bolton and ended up at Chelsea, and he had a long career. And I think he was found guilty, and I think he got a fine. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that's the way it
works.
How
did Arsenal deal with because didn't Tony Adams get done for domestic abuse as well?
I'm not sure. So I thought it was drink driving with Tony Adams. I'm not sure.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I don't want to speculate.
No, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was drink driving with him, and I think he was very open about his addiction. I think his book's called Addicted, and he runs he did I think is it Sporting Chance Clinic, where it helps sports people that are suffering with addiction. Paul Merson obviously had addiction issues. This is different, obviously, the nature of it. The audio, obviously, is something that most people, I presume, have heard, and that is a bit of a game changer in a lot of the attitudes towards it, because I don't think if you heard that audio, it would be as emphatic as it is, because you'd still have that, well, okay, maybe there's we don't know what's going on, or we don't believe it, or whatever. That audio made a lot of people think something's gone on here that shouldn't have gone on. That is the difference, I think, with this, is that audio is out there. You've also got the pictures out there. Some people disputing them or whatever. Fewer people disputing the audio. The audio sounds a bit more clear. It's one of a kindness for all the wrong reasons. But I can't recall ever where there's been this situation. Yeah. Certainly not Manchester United.
Well, like Ched Evans, was it? Was that another?
There was a Ched Evans case, and I think he was he went briefly to Sheffield United, and they didn't want. Well, there was a bit of a kick-off there, but he was eventually on appeal. I think found not guilty. He was found guilty at first. Yeah. Then on appeal, he's found not guilty. There was David Goodwillie, who I think was found not guilty, but in a civil case was found guilty, and he found a club. But then there was a big kick-off, and his offer of a club was rescinded. There's been players who, I think Robinho had a charge.
Robinho can't go back to. I'm pretty sure Robinho can't go back to Italy now, because I think he's got a warrant out for him, because he was at Milan. There was a lot of.
So there's been. Even Ronaldo had that case, didn't he?
In Las Vegas.
Yeah, do you remember where there was the case that was going on?
Yeah.
And there was the banner that flew across Old Trafford when he arrived, and I think there'd been a settlement, and the Spiegel had got some leaked emails suggesting that he'd been guilty of an offence. He obviously denied it. So there's been similar-ish situations. I just don't think there's been anything quite as, for want of a better word, as dramatic and as open as this one, because of that audio.
Or dragged out as long,
because usually, you'll have some sort of resolution. I mean, how long's it been? It's been since, was it Ralph Rangnick was he the manager?
I think it was February 2022.
So
around that, so it's like 18 months.
So 18 months this has gone on for. And it's pretty bad to see as well, a lot of victim blaming going on, which I don't care where you sit with the Mason Greenwood situation. That stuff's got to stop. You can't be doing that. There's been division and people putting one point in argument forward and putting others. You're always going to get that, but some of that has spilled over into some pretty unsavoury stuff we've seen online, especially. So it's just a really horrible situation that you find yourself in with a player that I think a lot of us thought was going to have a bright future at Manchester United for the next decade, if not longer. This is, like I said earlier, a generational talent, and now we genuinely don't know if he's ever going to kick a football for Manchester United again. I still think he'll play football, because I don't think he's been charged. I just don't know if he'll play football for Manchester United.
So they told the press they're going to make a decision by.
Well,
is that you'd expect that, because a lot of different people
some journalists have said that, and some journalists who don't tend to be wide of the mark that often.
Why do that? Why not just make the announcement? Why decide to tell the press? Why, nobody, because this date that we've supposedly given before the start of the season, nobody was expecting that until these journalists were fed that information, were they? So they brought it all up. This could have been festering on in the background until they've done an investigation or made their mind up as to which way they want to go. But now, because they have said this isn't ideal preparation going into a season. They had all the Ronaldo stuff that was hanging over Ten Hag last season going in, and now we've got the similar sort of situation, obviously on a larger scale for different reasons.
Yeah, 100%. Nick Albert in the Super Chat says, let's be honest here, whatever the decision is going to be, probably around half of the fan base is going to be pissed off. You can't win in this situation. I agree with that. I've seen a lot of divided opinion on this, and I think that there will be people. I've seen people. We've done videos on it. We did a debate at a watch along. Myself, Joe McGrath, and I think it was Nick McCabe was on it from Real Red Sox, and Joe Smith did a video when I think the charges first dropped. And you see it in the comments. You see even talking to people. There's people that are going innocent to prove guilty. There's people going, nah, I've heard that audio, not for me. Eric Cantona in the Super Chat, I don't think it's the Eric Cantona, but you never know. Why are we pretending there's a credible investigation in the first place? Both are having a child, right? They've patched it. Let's move on. PR game FFS. Loads of people in the chat as well. people talking about it. Nick Quigley says Mendy. There was a Mendy charge when I think he got found not guilty. After
he just found a new club in France.
He's gone to France.
Can I just say something as well? You were talking there about the division and how people may be feeling one way or another. If you've got an opinion and it's that strong, whether they should keep him or whether he should never play for the football club again, just be mindful of the language that you use towards it. You can keep your opinion to yourself, even though it's at odds with somebody else. It doesn't require any sort of toxicity or being horrible to somebody else, because there's a lot of people, regardless, when all this sort of like victim blaming, regardless of this situation, it's the knock-on effect when you start doing that. It can trickle down and outright, there might be somebody else who's going through that situation, who's fearful of coming forward and sees all this online, and it can deter them from going forward to the police. So even if you disagree with Mason Greenwood leaving United, then you just have that opinion. You don't need to use it as a reason to sort of attack other people.
No, this is I hate that victim blaming. It's absolutely disgusting, regardless of what your opinion on Mason Greenwood is. A lot of people just discussing it. It's going back and forth. People saying about, some people just want to see Mason Greenwood play for Manchester United. Some people never want to see Mason Greenwood play for Manchester United. One comment as well that someone made about, not to forget this subject completely, just a little aside, about the 1958. I think they've got a protest over the Glazer ownership planned for the Wolves game. So if you go onto their socials, the 1958, they're doing a protest. I think I'm just having a look now. 6:30 at the Trinity statue. This is for Wolves and Forest. 6:30 at the Trinity statue for Wolves. Flags, banners, and voices to promote the Forest sit-in. There's obviously going to be a sit-in there. Start again. Right, Wolves 6:30 at the Trinity. Flags, banners, and voices. To promote the Forest sit-in. Forest 60-minute sit-in at full time. United together in defiance. 18 years of ignorance, 18 years of silence. A resolution is needed. The 1958. So that's obviously about the owners. The 1958 who've been leading the protest on that. We spoke to one of them on Stretford Paddock. They did a protest ahead of the it was at the Mega Store, and they did a protest there when I think the new kit was launched. They've been carrying on that. Obviously, you mentioned it earlier, Scotty. Still no clearer on what's going on with the ownership, and the 1958 and others as well, not just them, are protesting and letting their owners know we want them gone. Yeah, the Mason Greenwood issue or decision is one that we should hopefully see some resolution to soon. It's not going to end there. If he goes, you're going to have people that are going to be angry that he's gone. Why did we keep him? There'll be people that will be relieved. If he stays, vice versa. Do you think if he stays, people will forgive him? The ones that don't want him to stay, do you think that it'll be okay for him to stay in terms of it'll become tenable? Or do you think it could be a situation where there's that many people in a fan base that don't want him here, that even if he stays, he might just get sort of a bad reaction?
Yeah.
They might go, this doesn't work, this isn't going to work, he's going to have to move on.
There's two trains of thought with this, because if I was to read the room from social media and the majority of stuff that I see on there, if that was the sort of, I don't know what you call the population that was testing for the reaction, then I may say there might be offer an opportunity for him to sort of, I don't know, play for the club again, and I don't want to say forgive him for what's happened or whatever, because he's not been found guilty of anything. I don't want to try and get myself in the wrong situation, but just reading the room as a Manchester United fan that lives in Manchester and goes to Old Trafford, I just can't. The majority of people that I actually know physically, not through social media, never want to see him in Manchester United shirt again. And really? I just can't. I can't see it. I just can't see it.
Get involved in the comments in the chat. Like Scotty says, be respectful of anyone who's involved in that in terms of victims and stuff. Let's not do victim blaming. I'm just going to go through. There's quite a lot of comments, quite a lot of varied opinions. Some people getting quite angry. Others, like Kevin Good, says Greenwood will help us win things. Daniel Gray says huge lack of morals in the chat today. People who've heard and seen abuse and are pretending they didn't. Grim. So you see, there you go. You see the two polarising opinions sort of summed up in two comments right next to each other, where Raf222 says just don't know how people can ignore the audio. It's pretty grim. And I rated Greenwood as our potential best player before that. Alan Hire says Greenwood a natural striker. He scores with both feet or both foot, but I think that's meant to say both feet. Miss Man United went over very well. So some people saying they won't support United anymore if he comes back. I obviously couldn't not support my team because of one individual. There's so much we all don't know, but the audio was disgusting. That's another thing as well. Will some people just sort of stomach it, be unhappy about it, but stomach it?
Right, yeah. What is the punishment that people want? Is it that? Looking at the legal aspects, he's not been charged of anything. No. He's not going to go to jail for it. We can't move away from the audio. So the people that don't want him at United, what's the sort of punishment that he wants? Because he's going to carry on playing football somewhere else.
I don't know. I think one of the sort of difficulties, and I know this from speaking to people and even a little bit myself. If you've heard that audio in your mind, you think that is horrible, disgusting. I think what I heard was what went down. Have you got an issue going to the ground or just sitting at home? Especially if, you say, not to be melodramatic, but I do it. Take my daughters and that. Have you got an issue with getting behind a player that you think is guilty of those things? Not in the eyes of the law, but you think he did those things because based on that audio. That is what I was talking about in the audio. That is where it's sort of different from just people going, well, 100% didn't do anything wrong. There's the audio out there where a lot of people listening to it going, it's a guy that's done something he shouldn't have done. That, I think, is where there's a difficulty here for a lot of people.
Would the general public, do you think, prefer to hear something from Mason Greenwood on the event? Because he's been very quiet, obviously, for legal reasons.
I think if he does stay, and I don't know,
he'd have to come out.
I think you will see a PR campaign like you've never seen before.
But not even a PR. And I know it'll be a PR campaign, but I'm just talking from fuck all that and trying to save his career. But if he truly wants to try and find redemption in the United fans' eyes that don't want him at the club, then it's a long ass road, man. You've got to be doing fucking charity work with people who have gone through that certain stuff and learn from your mistakes and be evident with it. Do you know what I mean? We've nowhere on this sort of level. We've made mistakes in our in past lives and stuff and tried to learn from them, and that's been evident, as our lives have gone on. But it can't just be a fucking PR campaign. That'd be the worst thing.
Well,
do you know what I mean? If it come out and it was like, I'll just go around to see some domestic abuse survivors for a brew after a weekend and all.
I think it'd be more. I think, and again, I don't like speculating, but we've got to get into the discussion. I think it'd be more of sort of him and his missus doing an interview together, sort of very stage managed one by the club do it.
Coming out of pregnant
and then him sort of doing an interview maybe on his own as well.
Yeah.
Maybe there's I don't even know. There's some sort of there is some sort of charity work angle. I don't know how it would look. Regardless, there's certain people that no matter what he does would never stomach it, and there's others that would be like, yeah, that's fine. But I think if he does stay, there will be something like that. I'd be surprised if there wasn't. I know it's completely different, right? And I'm not comparing the two situations because it's different. But you remember when Harry Maguire got nicked in Mykonos?
Yeah.
And it was like, he did that interview with, I think, was it Dan Rowan of BBC, or he sat down with, I can't remember who it was. And it was like, you could see this coming, couldn't you? It's like, I'm going to sit down and give my side of the story and explain to the public why I'm, this is all a load of rubbish or whatever. And it was a very sort of stage managed type of interview that you saw coming. I know this is a different scenario. I'm not comparing what Harry Maguire did in Mykonos to what Mason Greenwood's been accused of, but I'm just saying, I think it'll be that kind of thing, that kind of interview. But maybe
that wouldn't be enough, surely, just having one interview. I know it'd be along them sort of lines, and like I said, there will be a certain number of fans if the decision is that he stays at Manchester United. We'll never be happy that he pulls on a Manchester United shirt again. But, and I know this is the sort of argument that some people have said in the comments, if his girlfriend has forgiven or is staying with him, I don't want to speculate that it doesn't seem like she's been coerced into staying in a relationship or to have a baby with him. Does that hold any weight into the sort of behaviour that he maybe sort of, I don't know.
Maybe it will to some people, but the other people that might think, what's the relationship like? Is it a 100% relationship where there's no controlling or coercive behaviour in it? There's still people that question it.
Yeah.
There will. There'll be, I guarantee for a fact there will be people that still think, is she been given the freedom that she wants or whatever, or is she feeling under pressure or whatever?
Yeah.
That I expect to happen from certain people. We know there is people out there that have sort of planted the flag firmly and saying, you know what, I'm not, no matter what he does, I'm not having this. and it's done. And there's others that are saying, you know what, it's time to move on. He's not been found guilty. The charges have been dropped. Like you say, he's having a baby and all the rest of it. It's time to move on. I just think that regardless of which side of the fence you sit on, the club have to make a decision. They have to make a decision for the benefit of everyone involved, including the club itself, because you can't just leave it. You can't just leave this not dealt with.
Yeah.
That's not an option. You can't just go, oh, the investigation's just ongoing for what, forever? No, that's ridiculous. You have to say, right, we've concluded our investigation. These are the findings. This is our decision. Because you've said you're doing an investigation. You've put that out there. You could have gone, the police's case is concluded. He's back in training. But you didn't. You said you're going to do your investigation. Right, fine, I'm not got a problem with that. It makes a lot of sense to me. But then you have to come to a conclusion eventually.
Yeah.
You don't just go, oh, this investigation. It's not like looking for Jack the Ripper where it just carries on forever. It's an unsolved mystery. You go, right, this is our conclusion. We have decided, based on what our investigation has told us, that we are going to do A, B or C. But you have to do that, man. And I think that it's just been dragging on. Nick Albany says, your own opinion aside, the abuse he's going to get in the stadiums is going to be grueling and non-stop. Just imagine the chance if he stays in the UK. He will get, no doubt about it. We've heard chants when he's not been playing. People have been chanting and fans have been chanting his name and not.
Do you
for the
think
right
he wants
reason.
to stay at Manchester United? Because that's got to play into account.
That's a very good question. I've no idea. I mean, I don't know how he'll view this. I don't know whether he feels the club have done the best for him. I don't know whether he feels the club could have done more for him. I don't know. I've no idea whatsoever. A lot of it will be how he perceives this has gone down. Does he feel like he's had the support of the club? Does he feel like the club have thrown him under a bus? Does he feel like the club have acted in a fair way? I have no idea whatsoever. But I think that may depend on it. Because let's not forget, it's a two-way street. He could turn around to the club and say, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to play for Manchester United anymore. And the club going to fight to keep him when all this is going on? They're going to go, all right, fine. Well, that's
Can you imagine the outcome
problem solved?
If the Glazers go like that, well, we've decided to keep Mason Greenwood, and he goes, I don't want to stay here anymore.
Well, I mean,
that'd be so Manchester
that
United.
would be Manchester United in a nutshell at the minute, wouldn't it? Mason Greenwood going, thanks, but no thanks. I imagine they've had a conversation.
Yeah.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But you just don't know. There's so many conflicting reports coming out. The only one I sort of think is remotely accurate or seems to make a lot of sense is this idea of an announcement or some form of resolution within the next week, because a few people have said it, a few journalists that kind of know what they're on about. Yeah. And if it doesn't, if the club don't, then it just rumbles on, doesn't it? It just rumbles on, and if you're just looking at it from a football point of view, I don't know where that leaves Eric Ten Hag. Does he just ignore it? Does it not matter? Does he go, well, just pretend Mason Greenwood doesn't exist? Or is it something where he's got to deal with it? I don't know. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
It
and
really,
it's just,
really is.
I will never forget the day as well when we found out all this. We heard that audio, and it was just.
It was Sunday morning, it was a Saturday night, wasn't it?
A horrible situation, and one that it's not going to have a happy ending, but it needs some sort of ending sooner rather than later. A different kind of ending. If we can move on from Mason Green. Loads of people in the comments and the chat as well, and I like the fact there's a bit of a debate going on, and from what I can see, it's pretty respectful. Forgive me if I'm missing people abusing each other.
That's good. We have a good community on our channel.
But I've not seen that. Harry Maguire, bid from West Ham.
30 million, is it?
30 million. Are we having that one?
Is that a 30 million improved bid? How much did they try to lowball us for, the bastards?
Well, I don't know.
They got 105 mil for Declan Rice. You just know.
Is it one of them in it? They've got, Fabrizio Romano tweeted, West Ham and Manchester United are in direct contact over Harry Maguire deal. £30 million bid has been sent today. Clubs are talking. No contact made on player side yet. Talks will continue as there are more Premier League clubs interested in Maguire. 30 million, is that about right for you?
I'd probably say so. He's 30 years old, isn't he?
Yeah.
England captain, it's a great deal for West Ham, and I think their fans will get massively behind him, and I fully expect, should he go to West Ham or anywhere in the Premier League, that Harry Maguire will score a header against Manchester United at some point this season. But I think it was pathetic that he was getting booed by his own fans. I know sometimes we poke a little bit of fun here and there, but he's not wanted his Manchester United career to be what I'll deem a failure. He's not wanted it not to work. He's always tried his best. His best may not have been good enough. And you can say the same thing to people like Anthony Martial, but he puts the shirt on, he's still a human being. The same people who will go online and start saying, be kind, you know, look out for other people's feelings, and then we'll boo players when they're playing football on the pitch in a friendly in Dublin. What's the point? What do you get?
It's weird that I spoke about it.
It's a stupid. It's a witch hunt for no purpose at all.
No, this happened in Perth last year. He was getting booed there. I remember thinking, what's all that about? It might have even been Melbourne and Perth, I forget. But I remember like thinking, this is a bit bizarre. And then this summer, it happened again. Obviously, it's happened in was it Houston for the Real Madrid game, in Vegas for the Dortmund game, and then in Dublin for the
yesterday, wasn't
it? Bilbao game. I spoke to a couple of people saying actually there's a few people that booed him, and then there was more people that cheered him. Like it was a bit of a pantomime thing. It is odd. I'm not into booing players. I do feel a little bit for Harry Maguire. I know some people say, oh well, he brings it on himself with his attitude and all this. I don't think his attitude's that bad. Certainly not. I don't think it's anywhere near bad enough to get booed. And I think that it's obvious you're in a similar situation. Well, it's not the same to David De Gea in the sense that he could do a job somewhere. It's probably just best for everyone if he moves on. And I know David De Gea obviously did, longer at the club and did a lot better than Harry Maguire's done. But when I look at Harry Maguire, I just see a player who's got no confidence at all. I see a player who is a shadow of the player who was at Leicester. He's a shadow of the player he often is for England. I think he's an easy target. And I think if Harry Maguire was to leave Manchester United, there's the bit in the Romano tweet where he says there's other Premier League clubs interested. Doesn't surprise me. I think he walks into most Premier League teams.
Outside the top 6, he walks into every single team.
100%. I think I was chatting to, I think even like Spurs. I think I was chatting to Spurs fans and they were like, who gets in our team.
Yeah.
I think they've got Eric Dyer in defence and Ben Davies, whatever. It's like they're not exactly tearing up trees. Who's the other kid they've got? Is it Renato Sanchez? They've got all sorts of issues. Then you look at Villa. I think he's better than Mings personally. I just think he is. And the rest, your West Hams and your Palaces, and it seems like he gets in their team. And I think now as well, because last time round with the World Cup, being in the middle of the season, that helped him because it didn't mean that he'd had many games out or he'd not missed a lot of football. He played a bit for United anyway. Then it was a World Cup in the middle of the season, so he was going into that having played quite a few games because I know he wasn't first choice by the time it came around, but he'd had like 10 games under his belt that season or whatever.
I think Varane got injured, didn't he, on the run-up to the World Cup, and that's why Maguire got...
There was a few, and also he'd started, I think, the first few games or the first 2 games. Then you have, now this time, it's different, you have the end of the season. So if he stays at United and he's 5th choice, which he probably is, or 4th choice at best, doesn't play a lot of games, you're going into that tournament, the Euros, having not played much football for the entire season, maybe then questions start getting asked. I know Gareth Southgate really likes him, but...
Not yet, he's not going to let him play captain England.
It's going to be difficult, It's going to be difficult, isn't it? So, I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if he does move on, but it isn't West Ham. I think he might look at it and go, I can maybe do a little bit better. I know West Ham have just won the conference, Europa Conference, but maybe I can do a little bit, get a club like a Spurs or a club that are right near the top. Maybe someone like I don't know. I don't really think one of the smaller clubs who punch above the weight like the Brentfords or Brightons would have him. I don't think they could afford him.
Newcastle.
Is Ethan still there? Is producer Ethan? Not producer of this, producer of Stretford Paddock.
Would you have Harry Maguire?
In the squad.
I bet Harry Maguire's going to walk in and be the number 1 centre back in whatever team.
He's not going to go from being 5th choice or 4th choice at Manchester United to being 4th choice at Newcastle. That just makes no point.
No, not at all.
No sense whatsoever. He needs first team.
How
football.
does the money get put back into United then? Say we get 30, 40. Is that Amrabat's looking at that amount of money?
That seems to be the obvious one, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then you're still looking on top of that. Van der Beek's looking like he's going to go Real Sociedad.
Yeah, I think that's...
Fred to Galatasaray.
Like yeah.
McTominay's been touted. So there's could be like 5 players.
We've got at least
and Harry
4
Kane
or 5 players.
Harry Kane is not going to Bayern Munich anymore.
Are you thinking that...
I'm just saying.
We could get rid of Maguire, Van der Beek, Dean Henderson, who was the other one you said? Fred. McTominay. And bring in Harry Kane.
And your lad here.
And Mason Greenwood as well, to bring it back to him and get Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Why not?
And give them Maguire as part of the deal. Right, I've solved it. See, I could work it. Easy business on all these glazers.
Right, Scotty solved that. We haven't solved the Mason Greenwood issue, and that's something that does need solving.
I'm not gonna be able to do that.
But we have solved the Harry Maguire issue. Sell him. Give him to Spurs and a load of money that we've got from selling all these other players, and we'll get Harry Kane and we'll win the lot. Yeah,
that's perfect.
Happy days. So easy. What more do you want? So if you've not done already, subscribe to the channel. Also, I've put a little link to our Patreon in the chat. Click on that because we've got extra content on our Patreon. We've got Agony Uncles, we've got JMQs, we've got behind the scenes stuff as well. A bit of a vlog from when I was away in America working really hard. So go and check that out. Scotty, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, man, it's nice to be back. And then you're away again next Monday, aren't you?
I'm going camping.
Yes.
I've had all the glitz and glamour of Vegas and San Diego and New York and that. Now it's time to get back to nature. In a tent with a load of screaming children.
Wow.
Losing the will to live. That's a proper break, that, innit?
Breakdown. Right, I'm Scotty. That's been Motty. Thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe and we'll see you very, very soon.